Oh, a painting from a garage sale? Wow, Mom, really? You couldn't even afford a real frame? My daughter, Chloe, says, holding up my gift for the whole restaurant to see. Everyone at the long table laughs. My son-in-law smirks. My other daughter just looks at her phone, embarrassed for me. The waiter brings out her expensive birthday cake and I feel my face burn. Then a hand taps my shoulder. A man in a suit whispers, "Excuse me, are you Sarah Miller? I have papers that can't wait another minute." My name is Sarah, and I just turned 60 last night. For 32 years, I worked as an administrative assistant at a small law firm. I typed letters, filed documents, and brought coffee to the young lawyers. I never complained. I raised my 2 daughters alone after their father left when they were small. I put Chloe through community college and helped my youngest, Megan, with a down payment on her first car. But to them, I was just Mom, the one who clips coupons, drives a 2005 Honda, and lives in a small apartment. They're both married now with nice houses and fancy jobs in marketing and real estate. They love to show off. At family dinners, they talk about their vacations and their promotions while I listen. I wasn't rich or glamorous. I wore the same black dress to every wedding and funeral. But I had something they didn't expect. I had a secret life they knew nothing about, a life built in quiet hours after they'd long forgotten to call me back. If you've ever been made to feel small by the very people you raised, hit that subscribe button. I want to hear your story in the comments. Let's remind each other that our worth isn't measured by a price tag. Let's go. Chloe insisted on hosting my 60th at a trendy new steakhouse. My treat, Mom, she said, but I saw her checking the menu prices, worried. I knew she expected me to decline, to suggest something cheaper. But for once, I said yes. I spent weeks on her gift. I'm not a painter, but I tried. I painted the old oak tree from our backyard, the one they used to climb as kids. I even found a beautiful, simple frame at a thrift store. It cost me $12 and 3 weeks of my heart. At the dinner, after the expensive appetizers, it was gift time. Megan got her a designer scarf. Chloe's husband, Mark, gave her a gift certificate for a spa. Then Chloe opened mine. She stared at it for a second. Oh wow, she held it up. A painting from a garage sale? The table went quiet. Mom, the frame is literally peeling. Wait, did you paint this? She started laughing, a sharp, cruel sound. Oh my God, you did, that's so sweet. So you? Mark leaned over. Honey, you can hang it in the laundry room. More laughter. I started to speak, to explain the tree, the memories. Chloe cut me off. It's fine, Mom, really. It's the thought that counts, right? Even if the thought is budget-friendly. I felt the tears stinging, but I refused to cry. I just nodded, my hands in my lap. That's when the man touched my shoulder. Sarah Miller? He whispered. I'm so sorry to interrupt your party. I'm David Reed, your attorney. I've been looking for you all day. These documents regarding your aunt's estate just cleared probate. You needed to sign them by midnight. Chloe's head snapped up. Attorney, aunt, what is he talking about, Mom? I just looked at the man, confused. My aunt, I don't have an aunt. He smiled gently. Your great-aunt Margaret, she passed 6 months ago. The executor finally tracked you down as the sole beneficiary. I have the key to her property here, along with the initial transfer documents for the trust. Chloe stood up. Wait a minute, what property? What trust? Her voice was sharp, demanding. She looked at the man like he was a con artist. My mother lives in a 1-bedroom apartment. She doesn't have any rich aunts. It's all legal and above board, Mr. Reed assured her, handing me a thick envelope. It's a modest estate, a small, fully paid-off house in the countryside, and a trust fund set up for her care that was never used. It's accumulated over the years, nothing flashy, but enough to be comfortable. Megan finally looked up from her phone. A house for free. She looked at me, then at Chloe, a new expression on her face. It wasn't happiness for me. The rest of the dinner was a blur. Chloe barely touched her cake. She kept glancing at the envelope in my lap. On the way out, she pulled me aside. Mom, you're not thinking of keeping that house, are you? It's too much for you. You should sell it. We could use the money for the kids' college funds. It would be a huge help. I was stunned. Chloe, you just mocked my gift in front of everyone. She rolled her eyes. Oh, don't be so dramatic. That was a joke. This is real life. You don't need a house. You need to be practical. Mark joined in. Sarah, managing a property is a nightmare. Taxes, upkeep. Let us help you. We know a great realtor. We can take it off your hands, make it easy for you. Over the next week, the calls started, not just from Chloe, but from Megan too. They wanted to help me manage my sudden windfall. They offered to move me into a nice, safe senior living apartment and handle the sale. They never asked what I wanted. What they didn't know was that I wasn't some naive old woman who had never dealt with money. For 30 years, I'd worked in a law firm. I'd seen this exact scenario play out 100 times, vultures circling a surprised inheritance. They also didn't know about my Thursday nights. For the last 5 years, every Thursday, I went to a local community center for a class. It started as a way to have something of my own. I learned to code. Simple stuff at first, then more complex. I had a knack for it. I started building small websites for local bakeries and shops. Then I built a simple app for a friend who's a landscaper. It took off. Last year, I sold that app to a small software company. The money wasn't life-changing, but it was a solid 6 figures. I put it all in a quiet investment account. I never told a soul. I watched my daughters treat me like a child who couldn't be trusted with her own good fortune, and I felt a cold, quiet anger. They didn't see a mother who had sacrificed everything. They saw a problem to be managed and an asset to be acquired. I had a plan they never saw coming. It wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. And I had the perfect place to show them exactly who they were dealing with. The ally I needed wasn't a lawyer or a friend. It was a ghost. My great-aunt Margaret, a woman I'd never met, had given me a gift. Mr. Reed, the attorney, became my guide. We met in his office, away from my daughter's prying eyes. The smell of old books and polished wood filled the room as he showed me the house. It was a charming, slightly run-down cottage surrounded by a huge, overgrown garden. It was perfect. He also explained the trust. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to live on modestly for the rest of my life without working. "Your aunt was a sharp woman," Mr. Reed told me. "She left a letter for you. She said to tell you that she saw your name on the family tree and just had a feeling about you, that you were the quiet one who deserved a break." Meanwhile, my daughter's campaign intensified. They showed up at my apartment with brochures for active adult communities. They offered to hold onto the deed for me. They even started an argument in front of my neighbor, implying I was getting senile and needed their protection. "Mom, you can't even handle a smartphone," Chloe said one evening. "How are you going to handle a house? Just sign the power of attorney and we'll take care of everything. You can come over for Sunday dinner. It'll be less stressful." They were so confident. They had already spent the money in their heads, on their kids' private school, on a new car for Mark. They saw me as an obstacle, a feeble-minded old woman standing in the way of their upgrade. They had no idea that their senile mother had a bank balance that could buy Mark's car in cash. They had no idea that I had a plan, and I was about to invite them to see it. I called a family meeting. Not at my apartment or one of their houses. I told them to meet me at the new house. "I want your advice on the place in person," I said sweetly. They arrived on a Saturday, Chloe and Mark in their SUV, Megan in her sedan. The sound of their car doors slamming shut echoed in the quiet country air. They stepped out, looking at the cottage with barely disguised greed. "It's small," Chloe declared, walking in without knocking, "but the land is probably valuable. We should list it immediately." "Have a seat," I said, gesturing to the worn but comfortable couch in the living room. They sat, looking impatient. "Before we talk about selling," I began, "I wanted to show you something I've been working on." I pulled out my laptop, the one they'd always mocked as a toy. "Mom, we don't have time for your computer games," Megan sighed. I opened a browser and pulled up a website. It was a hyper-local news and events site for our entire county, beautifully designed with thousands of active users. I'd sold it to a local media group last month. "This," I said, turning the screen to them. "I built this, and last month I sold it." I told them the figure. It was double what the cottage was worth. Their mouths fell open. "You're lying," Mark whispered. "I'm not," I said calmly. "My accountant can confirm it, but that's not why you're here." I reached into my bag and pulled out 2 envelopes, handing one to each daughter. Chloe ripped hers open. Inside was a check for $5,000. "What is this?" she asked, her voice confused. "That's your inheritance," I said. "From me, it's a generous gift to help with the kids' college funds or whatever you need." Megan stared at her check. "But the house, the rest of the money." "The rest of my money and this house are mine," I said, my voice steady. "I'm retiring here. I'm going to paint in that garden, learn to play the piano, and live my life. I'm not senile. I'm not a problem to be managed. I'm your mother, and I'm done being treated like a burden or a bank account." Chloe's face went pale, then red. "You can't do this. You're being selfish." "Selfish?" I stood up. "You mocked a gift painted with my own hands. You plotted to take my home before I even saw it. You called me dramatic for being hurt. I'm not being selfish, Chloe. For the first time in 60 years, I'm being self-full." They sat in stunned silence. The only sound was the ticking of an old clock on the mantelpiece. Mark started to say something about legal advice, but I just pointed to the door. They left, the checks clutched in their hands, their expensive plans in ruins. That was 6 months ago. I've planted roses in the garden. I've painted the living room a cheerful yellow. I take online coding classes for fun. My daughters call occasionally stiff and formal. The money and the house are a wall between us now, but it's a wall I built to protect myself. I don't hate them, I just see them clearly. They were products of a world that taught them to value things over people, and I was the person they devalued the most. I still have the painting Chloe mocked. It hangs in my new living room, right above the fireplace. Every time I look at it, I don't see the humiliation. I see the oak tree, my children climbing it, a lifetime of love they've forgot. And I remember that my worth was never up to them to decide. Have your accomplishments or feelings ever been dismissed by the very people you love? Share your story in the comments. Subscribe if you're learning to value yourself, even when others don't. Click hype to help this story reach every mother, father, or person who's been told they're not enough. Your quiet strength is your power. Standing up for yourself is tough. If you've been there, subscribe and become part of our community. Let me know this story helped by clicking hype. And tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you for being here.